As we move into the second and final part of our study in James this morning, we'll take a look at chapters 2 through 5. Remember that the theme is that genuine faith is seen in a life that is changed, or to be a little more detailed, in a life that is moving from fractured and inconsistent, which is all of us, toward one marked by wholeness and integrity. It's not that genuine faith is seen in someone who lives a complete life of wholeness and integrity, though that's what we should aim for and seek for, but rather one that is moving toward it, becoming less and less fractured and inconsistent, and more whole and full of integrity. Take a look at chapters 2 through 5.
The body of the book is in chapters 2 through 5, which consist of 12 short teachings that call God's people to wholehearted devotion to the way of Jesus. And altogether, they don't develop one main idea in a linear way. Each teaching kind of stands alone and concludes with a catchy one-liner. But all of these teachings are connected through key repeated words and themes. It's really cool. At the opening of the book's body, there are two teachings. First, about favoritism and love. Jacob exposes how we tend to show favor to people who can benefit us, and we neglect people who can't, usually because they're needy. Jacob says this is the opposite of love, as Jesus defined it. He goes on to show what genuine faith does and does not look like. So if someone says that they have faith in God, but neglects people who are needy or poor, this person's faith is dead, he says. Their actions betray what they say they believe, and genuine faith always results in obedience to Jesus' teachings. Now, scattered throughout the body of the book, we find 3 different places where Jacob develops Jesus' own teaching about our words. So with the same mouth, we unleash pain upon people and then go offer praise to God. So messed up. And also, we judge people and then go talk badly about them behind their backs. And we also all tend to distort the truth to our own advantage. How we talk about people opens up a window into our hearts and our core values. Our words tell the real truth about our character. Jacob also believes that God's kingdom community, as Jesus taught about it, is the kind of place where the divisions created by wealth and social status are dismantled. So he warns first about the arrogance that wealth can create in people who believe it will be around forever. He says, no, your wealth will one day rot, just like you. In contrast, God's people are to live with patience and hope for Jesus' return to set all things right. And this should inspire a life of faith-filled prayer. Now, this part of the book, all of these teachings, they're so powerful, and there's way more than we have time for in this video. But seriously, read all of them and slowly.
We'll spend the balance of our lesson this morning in James just taking a look at the 12 lessons that the Bible Project identifies James as teaching. We'll take a look at what James is addressing. We'll take a look at one verse, generally the last verse, sometimes the next to last verse in each section. And we'll ask you to think about, how are you doing in this area? Does this area demonstrate that you're moving away from that fractured and inconsistency in this area toward wholeness and integrity in this area, or not? So, for instance, favoritism versus love. Are you the type of person who plays favorites? You like this group of people, but not this group of people. I would do anything for these people, but I don't even want to talk to those people. I like the popular people, but not the unpopular. The pretty or the handsome, but not the ugly. I like the rich, but not the poor. I like people with good hygiene, but I don't like anybody that smells. These kinds of things. Or am I willing to be loving to all? Now, all of us probably struggle in this area, and we need to be reminded that judgment without mercy will be shown to anyone who has not been merciful. Mercy triumphs over judgment. When we're evaluating one group as a group we like and another group as one we don't, we are passing judgment on them. God's judgment was overwhelmed by his mercy in our lives, so our mercy should overwhelm our potential to judge others. Next, is our faith dead or alive? This is the whole theme in a nutshell. And perhaps this section is really the core of James's letter. As the body without the spirit is dead, so faith without deeds is dead. If I'm looking at people in need and I have no concern for them and I never help them, what good is my faith? Did it actually change me? Do I really believe? Are you a person who has the works to demonstrate your faith, not works of holy goody two-shoes type thing, but rather works of caring for others and demonstrating the gospel to them? What about the tongue? The tongue reveals our heart. What I say shows what's really going on inside. And here, James notes this double-mindedness or double-heartedness. On the one hand, praise God, and then, you're a moron, I don't like you. I can see this in my life so much. I see it in our youth so often, and in our adults too. We're kind to this person and mean to this person. We can walk right out of church and light somebody up in traffic, and that shows something about our heart. So James says, my brothers, can a fig tree bear olives or a grapevine bear figs? Neither can a salt spring produce fresh water. And you might think, what does that have to do with anything? What it means is if my heart is a salt spring, it's not going to produce fresh water. My heart will reveal my tongue will reveal what's really going on in my heart. Are you salt or are you fresh water? True and false wisdom. If you're really being wise, wisdom will show up in peace. You will be a person of peace. This is a farming phrase, who sow in peace. You sow seeds of peace, and you'll raise a crop or a harvest of righteousness that comes from the peace. Are you a person of peace, or are you a person of anger and divisiveness and violence? What would your friends say of you? What would your family say of you? And again, if you find that you're not a person of peace, ask God, because he will enable you to become a person of peace if you are a person of genuine faith. If you find that your heart is divided, we just talked about this with the tongue, the solution is to ask the Lord for help. Humble yourself before him. Acknowledge that your heart is divided. You want good things, but you also want these things you know you're not supposed to. And he will lift you up. If you try to exalt yourself, he'll humble you. If you humble yourself, he will lift you up. What about condemning others? Are you passing judgment? This kind of goes back to the first lesson. Remember, there's only one lawgiver and judge. He's the one who is able to save and destroy. But you, who are you to judge your neighbor? Now, we should evaluate behavior and ask others to evaluate our behavior, but this is a condemning judgment. I'm going to look down on that person. That's between them and God. You seek to help them, and let your faith demonstrate a gospel disposition in your heart. If you are wealthy, note that wealth can make you arrogant, and you can think, well, I'm not doing anything wrong, but you have all these resources and you're not helping anybody with them. Well, if you know the good you ought to do, you ought to be generous, you ought to be helping others, you ought to use the resource God has given you to serve others, and you don't do it, well, that's sin. Remember, your life is a mist and your wealth is a mist. The next one, same thing, the danger of wealth. Now, this might seem odd. Why does he go here? You've condemned and murdered innocent men who were not opposing you. The whole idea here is of somebody who is gathering up wealth for themselves with no concern for what it's costing other people. They're becoming wealthy on the backs of other people, and they don't even care about them. They're just proud of their wealth and their riches. And that's something we need to be paying attention to. Do you care about others, or are you all about money and possession and wealth and getting ahead? Patience and endurance are such a big thing as we're in this final chapter, chapter 5. He points out that Job persevered and the Lord finally brought about what Job was seeking, but it took a long time. Are you prayerful and willing to wait and trust that the Lord is compassionate and merciful, and he will take care of you in time, even if you don't have what you feel you need now? Are you willing to trust him that it's coming, or do you go out to seek to grab it in your own way rather than waiting for him? Here's this idea of integrity. Just, if you mean yes, say yes. I swear that I will. I swear by. No. If you intend to do something, just say yes. And if you don't, just say no. James is pretty harsh here. Or you will be condemned. We're always throwing all these words in to try to make people believe that we're really saying that we're really going to do something. Well, we ought to be people who just, if I say, yes, I'm going to do it, then it's done. Faith-filled prayer. James spends a good bit of time looking at Elijah. Elijah was this great pillar of the Old Testament, this man of great faith, and yet James says, listen, Elijah was a man just like us. He was a guy who could mess up, who could fall into sin, who could get depressed. And if you go back and read 1 Kings, especially 1 Kings 19, you'll find that. And yet, when this normal man prayed earnestly that it wouldn't rain, it didn't rain in the land for 3.5 years. And then when he prayed it would rain again, it did. Are you a person of faith-filled prayer? If you're not a person of prayer, you're not growing in prayer, if you're not talking to the Lord, those should be signs that make you wonder if your faith is genuine, if there's no conversation with God and an anticipation that God will answer. And then finally, James ends with this: whoever turns a sinner from the error of his way will save him from death and cover over a multitude of sins. Are you the type of person, when you see someone else in sin, that your heartbeat is, oh God, I want to help restore that person? I want to point out their sin to them in love to help them stop so that they can know the joy of the Lord and be restored to the Lord? Or do you just condemn them? Let's all seek to be people who want to restore others and be around people that will help to restore us. Let's be a church like that.